Hi everyone, it's Erlene Garcia Art, and as I was cleaning my beads, I noticed that I had a bundle of brown beads and gold beads and topaz colored beads with a hint of pearls, and I said, why not just mix all of these one-of-a-kind beads together? I had extra chain, and as you can see, some little glitz and glamour here and there. So let's see if I can get through this recording and teach you how to make this in less than an hour today. It took me about a good hour to make it in between filming, but look at it. Isn't it fabulous? And it was just a bunch of one-of-a-kind beads that I had in a little jar, as you will see, and I put them together and it looks really cool. So this will be up on my Etsy shop. And look at the magnetic clasp. It's so easy to put on, yet it's so strong. And I wrapped each individual charm, and just so they will stay on. So let's get this party started. And that's a little vintage piece that I had there. I like to use little vintage odds and ends that are left over from vintage necklaces that I buy at the thrift shop, and sometimes I just have one bead left over. So this is what came out of it, and I love it. And that was an extra piece of chain, and I'm sure everybody has extra pieces of chain. But before we get started, I wanted to just share with you really quick these simple earrings. This is what got me on the road to making this bracelet. I had that extra chain, some head pins, and those little head pins with the little round tip. There's my little extra jar of yellow beads, odds and ends, my end caps, and that's what an end cap is. And a long time ago, oh, that's my Etsy, YouTube, and Instagram. You can see thousands of pictures of my art on there. So this earring was made out of leftover beads, and I thought I should have filmed this. But basically I took leftover chain, some leftover beads and charms, and hooked them together. The chains don't really match. It's 2 tones of gold, but I thought why not? And use some copper. I used some silver, and so it's tricolor. And that's what made me think about making the bracelet. So I got my odds and ends together and created these pieces. So I just grabbed them randomly. The pearl, the end cap, a yellow crystal Czechoslovakian bead, put it on the head pin, and I wire wrapped the top, as you can see here, and then instead of cutting off the little tail, I just wrapped it around. And usually we do this for earrings, and since I only had one-of-a-kind pieces left over, I just couldn't bear to just let them sit in the jar, so I said, why not? Let's make a charm bracelet. And look, ooh, that's a leaf. So I'm looking at this video for the first time, watching it with you. So let's see what we can figure out. And actually this is really easy. You probably need about 50 head pins and about 7 inches of chain. This one is pretty thick. And what else do you need here? Oh, you need a clasp. I just happen to have a magnetic one, but we'll talk about that at the end. So I just grab beads randomly, put them on the head pin, use my needle nose pliers, and just wrap the neck of it like we usually do when we do wire wrapping. Basically, you make a loop, and then you will turn it, for me, just to the left a little. So you have a perfectly round circle at the top, and just continue to wrap. I usually use 2 pliers because I find it easy. Some people use their finger. It's just go with whatever's easy for you. Now, usually we would cut that little tail off, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do like a little sloppy wrap around the top bead, and I left a little leeway in between the beads so I can hide that little wire. And make sure that you tuck it under after you wrap it, because you don't want that little piece to nick your clothing or skin. And then make sure that you straighten the top of this little loop out, because you can only make a first impression one time. And if you're selling your jewelry like I do, you have to make sure that it's perfect. So that's the type of head pins that I'm using. I'm really hooked on using these. I just love them. I like them better than the flathead. So I'm just grabbing beads. There's no rhyme or reason. I've been doing jewelry for over 30 years, and I just said, let's just put a little mishmash together and see how it comes out. So there again, I make a loop, turn it to the left, grab my needle nose pliers, and wrap around. Now, as you can see, I'm using tricolor findings because this type of bracelet is whatever you have, that's what goes on the head pin. Now there's a little loop. The little tail. Some you will see that I do cut them off, but others I just wrap around wherever I find an open space. I like that. Now if I had a couple of those, they would definitely be little earrings. And then just wrap it. And by the way, the black on my fingers, I tried painting my own fingernails, and well, I'm an artist, but I'm not very good at painting fingernails, so kind of excuse that. So this is a chain. It's about 7 inches long, and most charm bracelets are 7 inches long. Now what I did is I bent it in half and I opened up the loop. I did have to use 2 sets of pliers because that chain link is very thick. Now I'm just going to randomly grab the little dangles that I made and put one on each side. Can you see that? One on each side of that center link. So let's close it back up. And don't forget to put the chain on, because a couple of times I did forget and I'm like, oh shoot. I guess I was thinking about how fabulous this bracelet was going to come out and I was anxious to see it. So we're going to do one half and then we're going to create the other half. If you hear noises, those are my dogs walking around, Foxy and Thunder Bear. So basically, there we go again. We're picking up 2 random dangles and one goes on each side of that link. And I'm using the needle nose pliers to hold it. You'll notice that I switch pliers back and forth. And then putting that chain back on, closing them up. And if you don't have a multiple pliers like I do, needle nose pliers, cutters, and then the ones with the teeth are probably the best to use for this type of bracelet. So I'm going to do that again just so we can see it over, and I will do it a couple of times, maybe 5 times, so then that way you don't have to rewind it unless you really want to. But put one on one side, just grab another, put it on the other side, close the before you close the link, grab your chain, there we go, and make sure you close it nice and firm, because it is a chain. You don't want it to be half open and you lose your chain or your bracelet breaks in half. Wow, that looks really cool. I'm loving it. So let's continue. This will be up in my Etsy shop probably by the time that you see this video. And of course, those earrings in the beginning will be up as well. And we're going to put one on one side, hold your link, and put one on the other side. And by the way, I'm starting something new. I'm starting to have bead kits on my Etsy site. So when you have time, stop by the store and see if there's a kit there you might be interested in. A lot of them will have seed beads, vintage beads, new beads, ear wires, necklace cords. Ooh, I love that star right there. See how cool that looks? Now, I'm doing one on each side. If you have a multitude of beads, of course you could put 2 or 3 on each side. But this is just an easy way to get rid of all those little odds and ends that you might have. I'm loving that. Ooh. Making my own self happy there. So there's another one. And I was just using random end caps. And kind of hooked on end caps now. It does really make your bracelet have a finished look to it. Wow, look at that. And, you know, you will be the only one with this bracelet, because I'm sure in your bead stash you probably have some really cool mega beads. You don't have to use your odds and ends. Of course, you can use whatever you have. I was just trying to get rid of some of my little odds and ends, and I just love the way this came out. And this is probably one of the easiest ones that I've made. And then there's my regular bead stash, and of course everything is colorized, so I must have come to the end of some of my little odds and ends there, so I'm pulling out the good stuff. And because I am using tricolor metals, I'm using beads in all those different colors. So this kind of goes to show you, do not throw anything away. Do not give it to your friends. Well, unless you guys are trading off. Another person's bead garbage is another person's treasure. That looks pretty cool. Those little rosettes are actually probably the only plastic beads that I use on this bracelet, but I did like the color of them. I remember whenever I was just a young girl in the 70s, those beads were really popular. And that's why I bought them in every color. And of course you can use them for other things besides this bracelet. So they're making sure that that little tail is in. I'm making sure that that little loop at the top is straight up. Very important. And then let's see what I'm doing here. That one, it looks like I'm just cutting the tail off. And even though I did cut it off close, you're going to want to make sure that little point is snug against the bead. Now this is a teardrop shaped bead, and just because it's teardrop doesn't mean you have to use it that way. I usually like to just turn it upside down. Now this is my box of little sparkly beads, and the little rondelle I picked up came off of a necklace that I bought at the Goodwill. And then there's just an odd gold soft round bead. And if I would have had 2 of them, that would have made a nice earring as well. When I started out designing jewelry when I was 15, I would make earrings like this. And my first big sale was 10 pair of these earrings that I had bought beads from garage sales, jewelry, took it apart, saved the beads, made earrings like this, sold 10 pair for $100. That was my first big sale. And then eventually some of my other sales were by a few people that worked in the movies, because I used to work in the movies in my heyday. So I'm wrapping that around at the bottom, and that little crystal at the bottom is an Austrian crystal. And then there's just a nice little spacer. Now those head pins, I did purchase those at a bead and gem show in Pasadena, California. And I'm sorry, I don't know who the vendor was. His card is probably amongst lots of other cards that I've saved for when I open my store. But I believe I did end up with 50 head pins for about $2. And that little piece is copper color. And then there's another little silver tone rosebud bead. So as you can see, it really doesn't take that long to put those little charms together. Now keep in mind, if you do have a pair, you can use them as earrings or even charms hanging off of necklaces. And if you use just loops, you could probably make a one long necklace. And if you had a head pin that has loops on each end, you could make long dangly earrings. So now I'm going to do the other half of the bracelet. And I'm going to do the same thing. One on each side of that center link. Close it. Make sure it's closed firmly. Add one on each side. And always double check your work. Always make sure that the chain links are closed. You don't want one of your customers walking down the street and the link falls apart. Because if it's not closed properly, it could snag on something or pull apart. And you want to keep having repeat customers. So always make sure there is no sharp edges. Wow, that looks so cool. Look at the little heart. And I did the same thing. I wrapped that tail around the front of the heart. And this is a clasp. I bought that at the bead show too. It was, I think I got 3 of them for like $5. But I know if I go into a bead store, this is probably going to be about $7 by itself. So that was a real cool find. And with it being magnetic, not only is it easy to put on, but if your customer maybe has sore hands or arthritis, or maybe one of her hands is broken, let's hope not, but whatever it is, the magnetic type of clasp is easy to put on. Just make sure it's the right weight for your bracelet and always test it. So I didn't use a jump ring here because the links were so big. I just thought it would just fit perfect like that, and I'm very happy with the way it came out. Let's hook the other side. I'm loving it. Wow. Now that's a real statement making piece. And depending on what crystals, and you can use, semi-precious stones. Don't be afraid to ask a nice price for it, because it is a one of a kind piece, and it is an art piece. Wow. Look at the way that lays. Now that's all I used is just little leftover pieces of chain, end caps, odd beads, and this will definitely be up on my Etsy shop. I feel like I want to make one in another color. Look how easy that is, just to clasp it, especially when you're in a hurry and your date is waiting for you and probably looking at his watch like, why is she taking so long? All you have to do is just grab your bracelet, bam, snap it on. You don't have to worry about if your nails are too long or too short. So thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.